YouTube, I'll be showing you today how to do Kickstart in Red Hat 7, specifically 7.2. Um, there have been some requests to make a video on 7.2, but I haven't really had the time to do so. But now, let's go ahead and get started. What you will need for this tutorial is a Red Hat installation image and a Red Hat boot image. Now the installation image is basically an image which you actually use to do the manual installation. If you had to do Red Hat installation manually, you use the installation image. If you were to boot from a network, you use the boot image. You understand? Those are the differences. So I will be using VMware in this tutorial, VMware EXSI. So all my images should be in the data store. So I'll go ahead and check that first. So I'm basically looking for either net install or boot image. So I look through here. Yep, here we go. I do have my boot.iso, which is about 300 and something megabytes, 369 megabytes. So that is basically what I need, and now I need the installation image. So looking through here, I found the installation image, which is about 4 gig, right? Good. So those are the only two things we need at this point. And of course, it goes without telling. I mean, you have to have either VMware player or VirtualBox or whatever, or physical boxes. As long as it's two, you need at least 2 instances or two servers for this tutorial. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So a couple of things about Kickstart, right? Well, a couple of differences which I've seen in Kickstart 6, or Red Hat 6 Kickstart and Red Hat 7 Kickstart. Now, in Red Hat 6, we used to install a package called System Config Kickstart, right? Which actually brings up the GUI where you do all your necessary configurations. Nowadays, they use a package called PY Kickstart. Pi Kickstart, which is basically the package that makes Kickstart installation possible. So we will need such a package, right? As far as the options have also changed, but believe you me, I'm not going to go through those options which have changed. Now, the easiest way to really do Kickstart is basically do an installation manually and then use the answer file after the installation is complete. Use the answer file known as the Kickstart file to jumpstart or to to kickstart another server later on. You understand? That is the easiest way. Even though you could go through the GUI and go through those steps, which is also easier, but I have always found it to be quite easy if you use the Kickstart file. So in this tutorial, we'll actually be using the Kickstart file. Now, if further down the line you guys want me to make a video with the graphical tool, the Kickstart graphical tool, just please leave me a comment and I will definitely find a time to do so. Good. So with that being said, let's go ahead and install two of these packages. One is HTTP. Now, Kickstart file resides in two of these places, right? In one of these places, right? Either on a HTTP server or an FTP server. You could also do NFS server, which will absolutely work, but I've always used it on either FTP or HTTP, right? Good. So with that being said now, guys, let's go ahead and install these packages, okay? So let's make sure we cut our etc release so we know exactly Red Hat, sorry, release. So we know exactly the type of operating system we are working with, right? So we have Red Hat Server 7.2. Good. Now, with that being said, also ensure that you have a repository. So I will simply list my repositories to see exactly how many repositories I have. If you don't have a repository, you could surely create one, and if you need me to show you how to, I will definitely do that as well. But you will definitely need a repository. The ePair repository, I'm not quite sure it will provide the PyKickstart package. I think the PyKickstart package is basically in the local repository. Is basically on your CD, your installation image, right? Good. So now let's go ahead and get started here. Yum install. Then we have to install these two packages, right? Okay, so to me it looks like HTTP was already installed, so only PyKickstart needed to be installed. Good. Now, that is all we need to do there, right? Next thing is we vim into our kickstart file, which is by default lives in /root, right? So once you do ls, you see a file called anaconda-cares.cfg. That file is basically your answer file. This file will answer every single question that is asked during the installation of the server. Just think of it this way, right? In order for you to really understand the concept that is involved in Kickstart, think of it this way. When you are doing a manual installation, a couple of questions are asked during the installation process, like your keyboard, the language that you understand, your partition layout, your host name, your network configurations, your packages. I mean, all of these things are asked during the installation process. So all of those questions that you were asked during the installation process is then taken and kept into a file called the anaconda-cares.cfg. You understand? Good. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and vim into this file, and I will try to explain a couple of these lines in this file, okay? So let's vim anaconda-cares.cfg. All right. We may like to start from the beginning, right? The version of it, then here, the authorization information, right? So this simply means whether users should authenticate via what method, right? If you have LDAP, I know there is an LDAP configuration. I've always used the shadow file. So I don't really know how to do LDAP, but there are other means of authentication that you can put in here if you don't want to use shadow or plain text files, right? Good. So that's basically what it means. It says auth to authenticate using the shadow file, and the password algorithm is SHA-25512. That's just the length of the encrypted password. Remember, the longer the length of your encrypted password, the more secure it's going to be, right? Yep. So here goes a line that says a REPL, right? This line is automatically, since Red Hat 7, I've been seeing this line. This line is automatically added to this file. This is basically packages on your CD. That's why it says file, as you can see right there, right? Tells you exactly the path, right? We don't really have to worry about this, because even if we were to take it off, it will still, our Kickstart will still work, right? Here we see use CD-ROM installation media. That simply means during the installation of this server, I use CD-ROM. So I did my installation manually, right? But this time, we are not going to do it manually. We are going to use Kickstart. So therefore, we have to change this line to this statement. So here we have to say URL. This simply means what path points to your installation image. You have to tell the system the path that points to an installation image. So we have to give it an equal to It's really optional. If you don't want to give it an equal to, I'm used to that. You could simply give it a space and then specify the path, right? So usually a Kickstart file, well, the installation image can reside on the same server as the Kickstart file, or you could put the installation image somewhere else different from where the Kickstart file is. But to me, it's really useless. It makes no sense, really. I mean, put everything, make things simple for yourself, right? So here we have to specify HTTP. Why are we specifying HTTP? Because remember previously I told you we have to install two packages, right? PyKickstart and HTTPD. HTTPD is the Apache application, right? Remember, in every Kickstart installation, the installation image has to reside on a publicly accessible directory. You understand? Which means a directory which is viewed by the outside world. You get the point? Good. So Apache has a document root by default wherein everyone will be able to view the content of that directory as long as the port is open and they have permission to read it. You get the point? Good. So that's why we are specifying HTTP, which is the protocol. Then we have to now tell it the name of the server. So that is basically my IP here. Then you give it a slash, and then the directory which will contain our installation image later on. So here we are just simply going to call it install. All right, that's basically what it's doing. So which means later on we'll be creating a directory in var www html, a directory called install. So let's go to next. Next, use graphical install. So which means during the installation process, should a graphical installation be used? Now you will see all of these things going on. I mean, you will actually see all of these buttons that you can actually be tempted to click on, but the Kickstart will answer all of your questions, so you don't even need to do anything. You understand? So you could also do text only if you don't have enough memory on your system. But nowadays, every computer comes with enough memory. You understand? Memory in this case is your video card memory, not your physical RAM memory. You understand? Good. So let's go to the next. Run the setup agent on first boot. So the setup agent on first boot is basically where you will be asked to register your machine, whether you want to register your machine with Red Hat, what is the amount of KDump that you want to, amount of RAM for KDump that you want to set aside. Just all of those questions will be asked later on if you enable this option, right? That's basically what it means. But there is actually one way that this question will be asked if we use server with GUI package, right? But if we don't use that, we use probably, for example, infrastructure, this question will not be asked, so it's really useless. And you can disable this if you want. You can just simply change enable to disable, right? Ignore disk, only use. So which means if you have 10 disk, right? 10 virtual disk or physical disk, whatever, on the same system, everything else will be ignored except the first disk, which is SDA. So that disk will be used, right? Good. Next, keyboard layout. This is just, your keyboard, in the way, what language is your keyboard written in, and stuff like that. That's basically what that is doing. And our language, of course, that's basically what this one is saying, right? And then the network configuration. I am not really going to explain every single option in this file, but network is quite important, so let's talk about this. Network installation, network information is basically telling you on your interfaces or on your interface, right? What method of network information should be configured on this network. Now, here currently, my network interface will be called this, right? And the way an IP address will be obtained is via DHCP, right? Which means, I believe, dynamic host configuration protocol, I believe. Basically, what I'm supposed to do is to distribute IP addresses to clients, okay? Then here, you have whether to enable IPv4, IPv6. Auto means it will automatically enable it, right? Now, if you don't want that, you can surely say IPv4 equals no, but, or I think it's no dash dash no dash IPv6. You understand? Dash dash no dash IPv6. You could simply put such an option, but we are going to keep it the way it is. Don't change anything. Host name as well. If you want to change the host name, you can surely do so. But if you don't want to, you can remove this line, and later on, after the installation, you set up the host name. And that's what we are going to do, so that I'll show you exactly how we set up host name in Red Hat 7. So I will delete this line. So all you have to do is to press escape and stand on the line and press DD, which means drop dead, right? Delete. Good. The root password. So this is the root password, which will be set later on after the installation, right? So when we want to log into the system, we have to log in with the user root, right? And then this encrypted password. You understand? Now, if, for example, this password was in here, right? You could actually go to another system, copy the, as long as you know the root password, copy the encrypted one and bring it and just simply press it over here, right? So basically this means root password is encrypted, means the password that we are putting here is encrypted. Now, if you omit this option, it will take it as plain password. You understand? Good. Time zone, this is basically our time zone, and we are also going to create a user called our prep. This is also optional. You can delete this line if you choose to, but if you want to create a user during the installation process, then you could also do this as well. You understand? Or you can delete and create the user later on. So this is the username, and then the encrypted password is all of this, and as the option says, is encrypted. And then the comment of this user, which is that one right there. Okay, then we have the bootloader, of course, which is basically what makes the system to boot, right? And then the LVM partition here is set to auto. You understand? But that's because during my installation process, I told it to just lay me out the partitions automatically. I don't want to be doing that myself. You understand? Good. And this is the package group, right? Infrastructure, as I told you, infrastructure is more appropriate for production. You don't want to use server with GUI on a production server. That, first of all, it will make your computer go a little bit slower because you have so many unnecessary processes running. Secondly, security risk, because remember, the more processes you have running on a system, the more services running, unnecessary services, the more loophole there is, there are going to be on the system, right? So you don't want to take those chances. Now, one thing that I have noticed about Kickstart installation is this. Well, in 7.1, if you leave this line in here, it tends to error out. And Kickstart also, when you are validating your file, it tends to look at this line as an incorrect syntax, right? So for example, if we quit out of this, we save. So you just simply do escape, shift, W, Q, right? Which means write and quit. All right. Now, once you do that, you do KS validator, then anaconda. If you do this, all right, unfortunately, it looks like in 7.2, that line is no longer seen as an error line, right? So everything is good so far. Now, all we have to do is to make our install directory. Remember, we created a directory called install, right? in the URL path in the kickstart file, right? Good. So mkdir, right? So once you create that directory, the next thing you have to do here is to now attach your image into the CD-ROM. So all we have to do is to go back to our VMware. If you are using VMware, then you right click on the instance, well, the install server, the server that we are currently working on, right click and say edit settings. And if you are using VirtualBox, it's the same thing. You right click and say edit settings. I believe it is edit settings. And then you go to the CD-ROM icon, right? In VirtualBox is the very same thing. You go to CD-ROM icon, then you see the CD-ROM icon on your right, and then you click on it. Then you will see another. Well, by default it will say empty, right? Then you will see a CD-ROM icon on the far right. You just click on that arrow pointing down, and you select browse ISO image or something like that, right? But in VMware, this is basically how you do it. You select the CD-ROM and you say we have our image in our data store, and it's called Red Hat 7.2. It's already there, but if it was in there, I'll browse and I select the image, right? Good. Now, with that being said, I will quit out of this and I'll go back and simply mount it, right? Now, to mount, you simply run the command mount -o loop, because this is a loopback device, a virtual device. So we give it dev CD-ROM, right? And we are going to mount it where? Let's mount it temporarily on MNT, right? Good. And if we press enter there, it comes back with no error message, no message, nothing, just our prompt, which means it worked, right? Good. Now, if we were to do ls mnt, you see that the disk is actually mounted. And if we were to do df-h, we'll see that MNT is mounted as well, which is right there. Good. All right. So that's really all there is. Now we have to transfer everything to the directory which we have just created via www.html install, right? So the way you do that, we simply switch into this directory MNT. The fastest way to do it, really, you do find dot and pipe it to cpio-pmvd and then the path, right? So in this case is var www yep html instll. Now I said pmvd, so I don't know where I is coming from, right? So I'm quite sure that's why I wasn't tabbing before, because the option I wasn't recognized. Okay, so all we do here now is to press enter. This may take some few time, so I will just pause the video, and once it's complete, I will come back. Good. So our transfer is complete. So that is all there is to do to that one. So now the next we have to do here is basically, I just thought about one option that we need to put in the kickstart file, right? So that way they won't ask us for that later on. So here, go back to your Anaconda file and then just find an empty space somewhere, maybe just right above this guy, and say EULA -AG -agree. Agreed, right? EULA stands for End User License Agreement. This is basically the term and condition of Red Hat, right? So we said we have agreed already, so that way at the end of the installation they won't prompt us for that. So let's validate our file again. KS validator and then Anaconda, right? If there is any error, it will surely let us know. Now let's copy this to let's copy Anaconda to var www.html, right? So let's just drop it in there, not in install. You can surely put it in install if you want, but I just want to drop it here, and I want to call it ks.cfg, right? Good. So that is complete, right? That is complete. Good. Now, with this method of installation, there is no disk requirement, because remember it says LVM auto, right? Or partition auto, right? So which means if you have, for example, 20 gig of disk space. Now, I won't recommend you using less than 20 gig, of course, but if you have at least 20 gig of disk space, right? Yep, it's going to still do the installation. But if you have put in a requirement, then you have to have the same size of the disk that is in the Kickstart file as the one that will be, well, that you have to have the same disk on the client as the one that is in the Kickstart file. You understand? So for example, if you have 10 gig here on the installation, well, on the Kickstart file or in the Kickstart file, it has to also be 10 gig or greater on the client, or else the installation will fail. Good. Now, one thing we gotta do, so SELinux will not prevent us from reading those directories or files, we have to restore it, right? Restore con-r, right? Good. So let's give it a few seconds so that it restores stuff. Good. So that is complete. Next thing is to start the service. And then we have to enable the service. Now you may like to optionally check and see if the service is enabled. Yep, so now it's enabled, right? Good. So one more thing we have to check is www.htmlks, and let's give it -l. So if the permission is like this, right, then the installation will fail. They won't be able to find the Kickstart file. So we have to give it at least 644. Good. Now, next we have to open the firewall. Permanent option means you want to make this firewall configuration permanent, persist across reboot, right? Then we have to add the service. Good. Now you must also reload the firewall. If you don't, you will never be able to get to that port. Believe you me or not, guys, ladies and gentlemen, that is all there is to Kickstart. We are finished. Clap for yourself. Okay, next, let's go back here to the client or to the host, right, on VMware client, whatever it's called. Now, let's act as if we are going to spin up another machine. Well, you're actually creating a machine, so I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so let's give it probably Kickstart. We do next. I have 2 disks, so I'll just use the second one. And we are going to do Linux installation. And we only have one interface. We are going to give it at least 20 gig, right? Good. And here we say theme provision. Next. And we have to edit the settings. We have to edit the settings because now we have to attach the boot image, right? So we click on CD-ROM, we click on data store ISO file, and browse to where your boot image is, right? Good. So mine should be here, and it's, well, not really. Mine should be here actually. Yep, ISO, and we are going to look for boot ISO, which is right there. You click on it. Make sure you check this box if you are using VMware EXSI. All right, so we click OK. Now we simply start this instance. Open console first, and we see start, right? Good. Now once it's started, make sure you are on the first option. So click inside and press the up arrow key, and then you tab once, right? Just once, guys. So we can remove that quiet if we choose to, and here we simply type ks equals, some people say inst dot ks equals, right? But it's still the same. KS simply works too. I don't know whether inst is a new implementation in Red Hat 7, but I have actually used it. It still works, but let's keep it simple here, ladies and gentlemen. So KS equals HTTP, right? Remember the server was 10.0.0.242, which I think is wrong. Hold on, guys. Let me verify this. I think it is wrong. If it is wrong, we have to do a couple of changes. If config, yep, it is wrong. So we have to go into our Kickstart file and change that as well. Let's see, HTTP, well, sorry, let's see, no, sorry, var ks, and then we have to find the line that says URL, right? Good. You have to be very careful with this, because if things are not right, your Kickstart will never work. So let's just restart the service. Okay, so now we can come back here and tell it that it is 65 and is on the directory, well, is the file is called ks.cfg, right? Good. That is all there is. Now you press enter, should go ahead and do its thing and start the installation. The video is a little bit lengthy, but that's because I wanted to explain things that are involved. I mean, I'll definitely make one that is shorter if you guys request for it. Okay, it says warning, failed to fetch from 65. That is not an accurate error message. So that is the IP, right? Let's try this again, guys. But that is ks.cfg. ks.cfg. That is correct. That is HTTP. All right. So another way that I usually test such a thing, right, is basically by going to a web browser and try typing the IP, http://65, right, /ks.cfg. So it looks like we may have ks dash. You see, we said dash right there. You see? So that is the problem. We said dash. You can't do that now. So if we put dash here, it will surely work. So dash, right? See, we are now able to read it. So let's go back. That is my mistake. But let's try this again one more time. All right, we press down there. We erase that. ks equals http right? So let's try it again and see what happened here. All right, seem like things are going on well, right? Yep, things are going on well now. So that is really all there is, guys. I mean, I will just show you the screen where the installation begins, then I will end the video. So, but that is really all there is to Kickstart. It's quite simple, isn't it? No complications at all. Now, I may also, now remember, there are some manual processes that are involved during the Kickstart installation. Now, there is another method called PXC, which I will surely be showing you guys later on. That one requires no manual, no human intervention on the client side. Everything just happens, just worked, right? So, yep, so everything works, installation begins. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching.